right. Hello and welcome to FACT's webinar, Story Brand Marketing for Local Meat. Our guest presenter is Pork Rhyne with Pork Rhyne Consulting, and I am Samantha Gasson, FACT's Humane Farming Associates. Thank you for joining us. Before we dive right in, let me take a minute or two to do a few quick introductions. Food Animal Concerns Trust, or FACT, is a national nonprofit organization headquartered in Illinois. We work to ensure that all food-producing animals are raised in a humane and healthy manner. We accomplish this by supporting humane farmers, promoting policies that make foods from animals safe and healthy to eat, and helping consumers make informed food choices. My colleague Larissa and I run FACT's Humane Farming Program, which works with livestock and poultry farmers across the country. We offer grants, scholarships, training courses, mentorship, and of course, webinars on a variety of fascinating and amazing topics. Please visit our website at foodanimalconcerns.org to learn more about our farmer services. At this time, I am delighted to introduce our esteemed presenter, Pork Rhyne. Pork Rhyne is the self-described pork evangelist, an international livestock educator and farm marketing coach. I love it. He has been featured in Homesteaders of America, ABC's Localish, PBS's Resilient Agriculture, and Mother Earth News. Pork Rhyne has trained over 5,000 full-time farmers and homesteaders in scaling profitable farm enterprises by helping them overcome their fears of underpricing and marketing their story. He is passionate about developing farmers as servant leaders in their farm, on their farm, in their home, and within their community. Pork Rhyne is also the host of Pork Rhyne TV on YouTube. We are super lucky to have him with us today to talk about how to properly market your ideal customer. So without further ado, I will turn the floor over to Pork Rhyne so that he may begin his presentation. Rhyne, it is all yours.
All right. I'm excited. Thank you for the intro, Samantha. And thank you, Larissa, in spirit, wherever you are. Super excited to be here and really be of service to this community. I've watched a lot of y'all's webinars before in the past, and have definitely gotten a lot of insight into kind of helping me become a better educator as well. So I want to share my screen real quickly. Also, hey to some of these folks who I actually know. Thank you guys for coming literally all across the world to be a part of this webinar. Let me pull up the slide real quick. Perfect, there we go. All right, welcome to Story Brand Marketing for Local Meat. I'm your host, Pork Rhyne, the pork evangelist from North Carolina. Let's see, make sure I get the slides to go. There we go. All right, so here's how this is going to work. I'm going to speed run a little bit through the presentation just so that way we have enough time for a lot of dialogue and Q&A. I've been in a lot of webinars, and what I realized is that people want their questions answered. So I'm going to make the slides short, simple. Feel free to take notes. This will not be a heavy note-taking session. I just want you guys to listen, take in what I'm saying, and then kind of formulate some questions as I'm going along. So a little bit about myself. They call me Pork Rhyne, the Pork Evangelist. I am the founder of Pork Rhyne Consulting. And my educational background, I did get a degree in agriculture education, but just like most of y'all, my degree really didn't matter. Where I got the most enrichment was actually farming, first being an intern and then eventually being a farm manager for a couple different operations. My experience is in large-scale regenerative agriculture, primarily in livestock. Pigs are my specialty, but I have raised cattle, both broilers, laying hens, ducks, sheep, you name it, except for alpacas and ostriches. And so really grateful for that experience. Also have experience in the culinary world as a pit master, founded the local food council, and I have experience with national, local, and statewide policymaking as well. I do sit on a couple of boards. I used to sit on probably like what felt like 100, and now I've got it narrowed down to 3. And so those boards are NC Choices, which is a niche meat initiative in North Carolina. They have a lot of great resources. Feel free to look them up and check them out. I also sit on the Niche Meat Processors Assistance Network. We really focus on how to build and equip a lot of the local processors so that way you guys who are the farmers don't have to wait 6 months to a year and a half to get your meat processed. Amen? Amen. All right. And also, I sit as a board member for EAT Beta, which stands for Evangelizing Africa through Business Empowerment and the Transformation of Agriculture. All right, so you might have seen me on a couple of different places like ABC, Mother Earth News, PBS, Homesteading of America. I try to travel around a lot. I've been a professional educator and public speaker for the last 5 years, going on 6 years. And I've spoken at around 50 events so far. And I got a little bit of, I think, around 10 events to do this year. So I love being able to do these events because it allows for me to not only kind of spread the good news, but also to be able to have an impact in our community. Because let's be honest, it's hard making money out here, and it's important that we focus not on just the land practices, not on just the community engagement, but also on economic profitability and longevity as well. So I love this logo. This is my brand. I designed it myself with a little bit of help and input from friends and family. But the reason why my tagline is wisdom without the hogwash is because there's a lot of misinformation out there. And so I use wisdom without the hogwash to kind of build a foundation that context is more important than anything else. What makes some of these famous farmers successful is not necessarily something that you can always replicate. Unfortunately, a lot of people fall into victimhood because they try to replicate someone else's model without understanding their context. So really, it's my job to make sure that I help you understand what your context is and how to thrive in your context. I know a lot of people have been inspired by Joel Salatin. He definitely was an inspiration to me in my farming journey and career. But I realized early on that Joel's model doesn't fit everyone. Joel has a lot of lands, which he inherited, most of it. He has access to capital and loans and resources, financial resources. And he has a large labor force, which doesn't really pay a lot to have that. And part of that's because of his reputation is worldwide. So a lot of small scale producers do not have all three of those things. And that's what makes it really hard to be profitable when it comes to selling local meat at scale. In order to sell local meat at scale, generally, you have to have a large scale when it comes to land, financial resources, and a labor force. So what I like to teach is not anti-Joel Salatin, but it's just a different model to maybe help a lot of farmers who are especially established for a year or two to be able to kind of look differently in selling, instead of local meat, think about selling other things. So I focus on 3 principles, which is agro education. How do I teach people or train people in a particular craft or skill, which usually would involve demonstrations on farm and off the farm. I focus on high-end value-added products. So instead of selling raw meat, what if I can turn that raw meat into a snack stick? What if I can turn that lard into a skincare product that's shelf stable, can be shipped across the country, and I can get a higher profit margin off of? And then also agro-tourism, which is focusing on how do I create experiences on and off the farm for people, not just for the sake of economic buy-in, but for the sake of legacy for my farm. So sometimes this includes weddings, dinners, but it also includes other experiences that are really relevant to what you guys are doing and what you guys would like to do for your farm. With that being said, normally when I do these sessions, it's like a half day, whole day training. I'm going to boil that down to just a few minutes. So this is going to be a very quick speed run. I will kind of very briefly talk about the farm business framework that I've set up, but the main focus will be the farm marketing framework, which we're going to talk about later. And that will be the part where we're talking about the story branding and really how to focus on your ideal customer. So assuming that you guys are doing this, if not, it's totally okay. This might be a refresher course for some of you. When you start a farm, things that you want to consider is understanding what your niche is. For a lot of you, you have different skills, abilities, God-given traits, as well as interests that really help define who you are and what you're good at. And so a lot of people fall into the victimhood of wanting to do everything. They want to have all the livestock. They want to do all the enterprises. And so what I help people focus on is, let's be good at 2 things. If we could be good at 2 things, we can have more synergy amongst both enterprises. Also, your focus is not being spread across multiple enterprises, so you can focus more of your time on concentrated efforts, which will help you in your marketing, which will help you in your resources, especially when it comes to financial resources, and also help you with stress management, which is very important. Then moving from there, there's a lot of research that has to be involved in that. Research everything. Usually when I talk to a new beginning farmer, oftentimes there's this conversation of like, oh, I want to raise pigs. Oftentimes I hear, I want to raise pigs. I'm like, okay, cool. How much research have you done? And they're like, oh, well, I want to raise coonies. And I just smile and I nod and I just say, bless your heart. But seriously, I do tell them to kind of focus on what do your customers actually want? What kind of research? If you want to raise coonies, perfectly fine. Coonies are cool pigs. I like coonies, but they don't fit everyone's context. And so what are the cons to raising coonies? What are pros to raising coonies? And really understanding that, understanding also your market. What do the people in your area want? If they don't want what you want to serve, what other markets outside of your local area might be able to buy into what you're doing? Also, going forward than that, I talk about having a seasoned mentor. I'm so grateful that FACT does this. They have the opportunity for farmers to get a mentor through their farmer mentorship program. If you've not heard about that, I highly recommend you do some research on it. I think the deadline might have ended. Check with Samantha on that, but definitely apply for next year. I've met a lot of people who are mentors and both mentees in that program, and they have nothing but good things to say about that. But it's super important that you have a seasoned mentor, someone who has a lot of experience, strength, and hope when it comes to raising what you're raising and doing what you're wanting to do in terms of enterprises. They can be both a form of encouragement and a form of wisdom in terms of telling you things that never worked for them and may not work for you. Then you think about developing a plan, creating a budget. You try to figure out what are the production models and methodologies of raising certain livestock or creating certain value-added products. And then you figure out, how do I market and sell these things? Which is very important. Then that marketing and selling products goes all the way back to doing your research, identifying your niche, and finding a mentor who's really going to help you kind of figure out what might work best for you. Once you start selling products, the ultimate thing to do after that is to review data. Reviewing data is like God when it comes to running a business, because it really helps you figure out what worked that year and what didn't work that year. And so instead of dividing your time and energy, you can say, you know what, I did really well with the beef cattle and did really well with the pigs, but my egg market really sucked. I was just wasting a bunch of money. I didn't make the sales I want to make. Maybe I should consider dropping my egg market and my laying hens and downsizing, so that way I can focus more of my energy, time, energy resource, most of my mind energy resource on making the beef and the pork even more profitable than it already is. So moving on from that, assuming you guys are already doing that, I think you guys are. In case you're not, that's okay. No shame. We've all been there. Assuming you guys are doing all that, the next step that I like to teach people is the farm marketing framework. This was inspired by a company called StoryBrand, and they really help people kind of identify their niche and figure out what it means to not just share their story, but create and be a part of someone else's, their ideal customer story, and helping them achieve the goals and needs that they want. So this is kind of the framework that I'm going to be teaching from for the next 10 to 15 minutes. And then we'll go into a Q&A. So stick around. And again, as I'm talking, I want you guys to kind of formulate questions that are based on your context. No general questions about what's the best pig or what's the best market. No, think about like, what is your context? What are you having? What are the opportunities that you have in your local market and resources? And then generate a question based off of that. So ironically, when you think about marketing, oftentimes we think about the customer, but sometimes we go into this form of like unintentional narcissism. And so that's part of the reason why I put focusing on your ideal customer. It's not about you. And that's it. I'm pork evangelist. I'm honest. I'm upfront, I'm blunt. But I do it because I love you. And so anything that I'm going to say, if it rubs you the wrong way, just understand that's coming from a place of love. And it's something that I myself have had to realize for my business and my marketing. But it's not about you. It's not about me. A lot of farmers get into farming, and when they do a consultation with me, I always ask them, Okay, so glad we're here. Let's kind of chit chat. But before we do that, I just want to know, why do you farm? And oh, I hear these beautiful stories about people who were almost on their deathbed, whether it's cancer or other ailments, but then they start farming and growing their own food, and now their body was healing. And so they want to continue doing that. I've heard stories where people have had this particular property or land in their family for generations and generations. And they really want to continue that legacy of not just land ownership, but also making it profitable. I've also heard stories of people who want to quit their 9-to-5 job and be a part of the land because the land has been such a healing experience for them when it comes to mental health. I hear all these beautiful stories, and I smile and I'm excited for them. And then I say, okay, cool. Thank you for sharing that. I just got one more question. If that's why you farm, then why the heck do you have a farm business? The reason why I say that is because a lot of people, when they talk about why they farm, very, very rarely do they say, it's because I also want to make money. And that is a very important part when it comes to this. The primary purpose of a business is not to make money. That's the reward. That's the outcome. The primary purpose of a business is to solve a need, solve a problem, be a solution to someone's problem. And the compensation or reward for that is monetary gain, is revenue, is income, right? So a lot of people look at business as a bad word and look at money as a bad thing. But I say that money is a part of legacy building. Many of you want to build a legacy. Well, guess what? You have to care at least a little bit about the money that you're making. And that really dictates how you market and what you're doing. So the reason why I bring that up is because when we start focusing on, okay, I need to make money, I'm trying to do this to make money as well, then how do I make money? And that's where you focus on your ideal customer. Your ideal customer has particular needs and has a particular problem. And so it's your job, going on to point number 2, it's your job to figure out what that problem is. And the cool thing about it is you don't really have to figure it out. Oftentimes people will tell you like, I have a hard time sourcing local food, or I have a hard time being able to find clean, nutritious food. That I don't trust the food at the grocery store. Or maybe it's I have a hard time using a lot of the skincare products because it irritates my skin. I need something that's a little bit different. And so this is a way where you can kind of play a role in solving a solution for them. This is where they meet you, the farmer. Again, this is not about you. This whole marketing thing is not about you. It's about how can I be a servant leader? How can I be of service to my community and the people that are interested in my products, but also creating products that people are actually interested in. I'll give you a quick story. So if you're on YouTube and maybe you're a homesteader, there's a young couple, they just had a baby. Their name is Josh and Jordan Kellys, and they have a Working Aussies Homestead on YouTube. And so I'm good friends with them, and I was chatting with them. They were talking about a story where they want to raise local poultry, meat birds, broiler chickens. And I was like, okay, like, how did that go? And they're like, oh man, we flopped. No one bought our chickens for $5 a pound. It was awful. And I was like, okay, so did you ever ask them, your audience or the people in your local area, that they were willing to buy at that price or that they even wanted your product? And they're like, oh yeah, we did the survey and everything. I was like, oh, okay, so how did the survey go? Well, we didn't really get a lot of response back. The reason why I share that story is because for many of us, when we're passionate about certain things, we want to do certain things, but when you actually ask people whether or not they're interested in the things that we are interested, oftentimes the answer is no, or there's no response. And so as a business, again, our primary focus is to make sure that we are tailoring to the needs of the people, not to our own personal needs. This is how we get out of the unintentional narcissism of, really, I'm just doing this because I want your money and I want you to build my legacy. Really, it needs to be from a servant leadership perspective of how can I make your life better? What can I do to enrich your life? How can I serve you in a greater capacity without compromising myself and my needs as well? once the ideal customer, you figure that out, you realize what their problem is, and they meet you, then it's time to provide a service that really tailors to that ideal customer. Again, being able to go do the footwork and ask people around who your ideal customer might be. And with ideal customer, I want you to think about not just, oh, I want a rich person. Think about what kind of car do they drive? Where do they live? What's their household size look like? What's their median income look like as a whole? I want you to think about like all defined specific details of who a person actually is, because once you have a better identity or grasp of what that person looks like, what kind of lifestyle they have, then you're able to target a much better. I believe in target marketing rather than the shotgun approach to, I need to serve everybody. You don't need to serve everybody. Target marketing is really I focus on a specific person. And then oftentimes what you find out is there are people around that specific person that also start to get attracted to what you're doing. They're not necessarily your target audience, but at the end of the day, there are people who are so interested in your product via your target audience. So once you figure out what kind of service you want to provide, whether it's selling local meats, again, that's not what I consider to be the ultimate future for the small scale producer. I really think when it comes to profitability, the future oftentimes, personal opinion, this is not the gospel, but I think the future really will lie more so in agritourism, high-end value-added products, whether it's skincare, whether it's charcuterie, whether it could be a number, a plethora of things, even cheese making. And then also focusing on agro education, which is how do I teach people about a certain thing and get compensated for that? For some of y'all, that's a butchery class. I had a consultation recently, 2 weeks ago, with a lady, and she was raising broiler chickens. And she was like, I made maybe $7,000 with the broiler chickens and the laying hens. And she had a lot of birds, but she really wasn't making that much money. And her prices were actually lower compared to what we would charge in North Carolina. She's all the way in Washington State. In North Carolina, $5 a pound is pretty much about an average. In Washington State, you can expect it to be more, but she was charging $4 a pound, even though she lived all the way in Washington State. And so I talked to her, I said, you know what instead of we focusing on the selling to local market, which you don't have time for as a mother of 5 kids, what about we focus on butchering? You've raised birds for a while, you're a chicken lady, and so you're competent in that. You already do that at your own homestead. Why not teach people how to do that? And so I said, if you're going to do that, think about it this way. Let's say you have you only raised 50 birds this year, or let's say you do a demonstration class and you are charging $150. Actually, no, $200 because of Washington State. $200 per person to be there. Cool, great. And let's say each person butchers 5 chickens, right? Cool, 5 chickens, right? So then basically for $200, 5 chickens, that's $40. $40. In North Carolina, if I'm selling chicken at 5 pounds for $5 a pound, then that's $25. Well, guess what? Doing a demonstration class, I almost double that. And so I want people to kind of consider working smarter, not harder. If you already have the skills and the experience to teach people, do consider teaching people. There are a lot of people who are more interested in being taught something than just you trying to sell them meat. And if you can understand that and figure out who those people are in your local area or your local region, then that allows for you to have more profitability on the back end without so much of the work. I did farmers markets. I did a whole bunch, I think up to 4 at one time. And I hated it. I hated how much time and energy that I put into doing that. It wasn't worth my time. It was a burden to me. I was always stressed out emotionally and physically and mentally. And I wanted something different. Looking back, I realized that if I had focused on generating income that was more present at home, where I'm using less of my time and energy, but giving high reward, high profitability for what I do, then I would have had a much stress-free life. That I would have been able to actually be in a place where I'm not stressed out all the time. For me, stress was a huge issue for me. My mental health was starting to decline while I was farming because I was doing too much. I didn't have a niche. I didn't have a focus. Even as I was managing other people's enterprises that they just wanted me to manage and run free with. And so I realize now that if I had more focus, I would have more time for myself. I would have time for the people who I love in my life. And that would allow for me to really live a happy, joyous, and free life that I always wanted to live. I thought farming was a solution to that. And I realized that it actually was enslaving me more than it was making me free. And so I don't want any of you to experience being enslaved to the farm. As a consultant, that's something that I hear a lot. It's something that I've carried the burden with people during a consultation, and sometimes we cry. I'm gonna be honest with you, because it's hard, and we don't talk about how we need help. And so this is part of the reason why I try to do the services that I provide. Anyways, I'm running on a tangent. I want to keep going. So assuming you figured out what kind of products you want to serve your ideal customer, because these are products that they are asking for and are willing to pay, then it's time to do a call to action. There are a plethora of ways they can do a call to action. This is where I think social media comes in handy a lot. Whether you're doing a social media post, a lot of times farmers, I've been guilty of this, we will do a post and it'll just be a cute picture of an animal. And that's really it. Like, oh, look what I got here. Oh, look, the lambs just, and we got the lambs playing and frolicking in the field. Oh, look, the piglets were just born. And that's cool and that's great. But if you're not ever creating an ask in your social media posts, then personally, I'd say you're kind of wasting your time. You can do the cutesy stuff on top of doing an ask. So saying, oh, we have our pigs out on pasture today, and if this is something that you're interested in, hey, did you know that we are also selling pasture-raised pork? Go check out our website at blah, 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 blah. Here's a link in our post. If it's Instagram, you can't usually do it in a post. Well, actually, now you can. Now you can do it in a post. But you can also have a link in your description, and they can go to that, and immediately they are looking at a shopping list that they can look at to buy pork from you, or to buy lamb from you, or to buy beef from you, or chicken, whatever it might be. Some of you guys are doing lard-based skincare products. Some of you are doing soaps. Some of you are doing cheese. So those are things that where you have to really realize what it means to engage your audience. Don't just post cute things, actually have an ask. Sometimes it doesn't always need to be a sale. Sometimes it's like, hey, here's a picture of what we're doing. Here's what I'm doing out in the field. I'm trying to figure out what products you guys might want for next season. Fill out our survey, and then here's a $5 off coupon or discount or something like that at checkout if you want to have that as a part of fulfilling the survey. You always want to engage your customers or your ideal customer in social media and social media posts, because if you don't train them to be engaged and to look out for you having an ask for them, oftentimes they're just going to take you for granted. I'll be honest with you. They're just going to be like, oh, I just follow this person because they post cute pictures. That's really it. Versus like, oh, these people are actively engaging me. They're providing things that I'm interested in looking forward to. And people love and enjoy that. Sometimes we do have to do some training both ourselves so that we're able to train also our customers. It's psychology, it's not manipulation. And being able to understand the psychology of your customer and the psychology of your market as a whole allows for you to be able to figure out, how can I maximize each social media post, each email in a way that gains attention, even if they don't buy immediately. They're still being conditioned to consider buying from me. Whereas a lot of farmers do not do that. If you're going to take that step, trust me, you will be ahead of the game compared to about 90% of your competition. All right, once we do an ask and let's say they take action, the reason behind that is when we go in full stream with them, either it's going to lead to one or two things. It will lead to peace of mind for them, or it'll also lead to them to avoiding a disastrous event. So an example of that would be, especially for the bodybuilding community, they want the peace of mind that the food that they're eating or intaking actually is healthy. There's a lot of greenwashing at the grocery store. There's even some greenwashing in our local farming community where people say they raise animals on pasture and they really don't. And so they want to be able to know that whatever they're eating is going to be nutritious, it's going to be fresh, and that it's going to be something that is coming from a locally sourced, where if they want to go to the farm, they can check you out. You're able to provide that peace of mind for them by being an open farm or relatively open farm through your marketing and through the product that you're serving. So that's one way of looking at it. In terms of like avoiding a disastrous event, one way I look at this is when I do a butchery workshop and I'm teaching people how to butcher an animal, or mostly like chickens and pigs. Me teaching them that helps them when they go back home to avoid some very costly mistakes when they butcher their own animal. That could be several hundreds, if not thousands of dollars, depending on how many animals we're going to butcher. If they make certain mistakes, whether it's a biosecurity mistake, whether it's just a butchering mistake, their experience is going to be less than what they could experience if they had taken my course, if they had gone to my workshop. When I'm teaching people about just simply how to raise pigs or how to make money, they might spend a couple $100, or if they're doing a consultation, $1,000 some dollars for that. But on the back end, they're able to either save tens of thousands of dollars or learn how to make $100,000 based on working on agritourism, agroeducation, and high-end value-added products. So these are things that you want to consider when you're thinking about your ideal customer. For some of you, you think your ideal customer is someone who wants to buy meat, and the reality is your personality, the way you farm, the way you engage people. Maybe it could be in agritourism. Maybe it could be in agroeducation. Maybe it could be in high-end value-added products. You don't have to just simply stick with a raw commodity. And with that, I want to end my sharing and then allow for you guys to ask me questions. And Samantha will be moderating that, and I will answer to the best of my ability, because again, y'all really came here to have your questions answered. So sorry it took so long. I thought I could shave another 5 minutes. My bad. I tried to speed through this. Again, this is like a half a day to a whole day course, and have grace. That was a lot. Not a lot. That was a lot.
Well, thank you, Ryan. I think you did a wonderful job. It was fantastic. So we do have some questions in the Q&A. So again, the Q&A is at the bottom of your screen in your toolbar. It's like the third or fourth one over. It depends on what your toolbar looks like. Everybody's looks a little bit differently. I think it looks a little bit different. We are going to run a poll for fact, if you don't mind. Hold on one second. Let me share my screen. Questions. There we go. And I am going to go ahead and run another poll. This one's for fact while you are thinking about. Okay, well, let me run the poll. I wonder why. I'm going to stop sharing for a second. Let me see if I can do it this way.
I will put a quick disclaimer because I see some people talking about bookkeeping and taxes. I would like to defer those questions to people who are probably more knowledgeable than me. Insurance, also the same thing. I'm more of a marketing guru than like a admin back-end type thing. I have to have someone do that for me because I'm just not inept at it, and I own it. And sometimes you need to just ask for help. You got to ask for help.
We do, fact does have a webinar on insurance that we did, I think it was spring of last year. I'm pretty sure it was. I will write myself a note and I will ask Larissa when she sends out the email to also add a link to that. So for those of you who are asking about insurance, and we are going to be doing a Farm Commons webinar that's coming up, and I can't remember the topic of it, but I think that's also going to be about insurance. Isn't that terrible? I'm sorry.
We still love you, Samantha. It's all good.
Okay, thank you. You're so sweet. I can actually tell you in just a second. So yeah, see, February 28th, the 5 steps to protecting your farm, legally speaking. So there you go. So
I'll be there for that one.
Yeah, they're really good. They have some fantastic webinars. All right, so I'm going to close the poll and then we'll get right into the questions. All right, share the results so you guys can see that. So Rhyne, the first question for you is, from, I don't, it's not their name, sorry. So how do you go about finding your niche in your area? Are we to try different things to find out, or is there any other method to find those?
Good question. I think that this all starts with you. Reason why I say that is because so I identify as someone in recovery, 12-step recovery. And one thing that we often preach and teach about is self-inventorying. And so from this context, one thing I'll say is really get to know yourself. When you know yourself, a lot of the questions that you have about what you should do, what you shouldn't do, really get resolved and answered because you know what you're capable of doing and what you're not. And even the things that you're not capable of doing, you can figure out, okay, I'm not good at this, but how can I ask for help? How can I get the help that I need in the things I'm not good at? So with that being the foundation of this question, one thing I will say is once you get to further know yourself, which is an evolving process until the end of your life, also figure out the things that you're actually good at. So for many of you, maybe you're not good at marketing. Maybe you hate social media, right? And so that might be an area where you want to focus on, okay, maybe online marketing is not the best route for me, or I can utilize online marketing, but I need help doing that. Many of you might be good at certain things. So like from a pig farming perspective, there are people who are good breeders, but they're terrible at marketing pork. There's some people who are great at marketing pork, but they are terrible breeders. There are some people who are both terrible breeders and are terrible at marketing pork. And this is where I come in, where I say, hey, well, let's learn some skills. Would you like to focus on agritourism and do like a teach people how to raise pigs on pasture, feeder pigs on pasture? Would you like to do an agroeducation event where you're teaching people how to butcher an animal or castrate pigs? Would you like to do high-end value-added products? Or maybe the reason why you're having very low traction selling your raw pork is because people don't care about pork at that price, but they will care about if you turn it into something else. Again, like snack sticks. Snack sticks are king. Like, oh, charcuterie king. The reason why I say that is because if you're selling, like, for example, I'll buy snack sticks for $20 for like I think maybe 2 pounds, right? So then that's like $10 a pound. For a lot of niche farmers, they're selling for 2 pounds around $30, and they're still selling out. And the reason why is because people value convenience. So the same people who will scoff at you with a Starbucks coffee in their hand that's probably $15, and they say, I'm not going to buy your product, even though you have your product at $10 a pound. It's more healthy, it's more nutritious than what they're currently drinking. Those are the same people that will scoff at you. And the reason why is because they care more about convenience, they care more about the experience, they care more about the brand and the labeling of being a part of the people who buy Starbucks coffee than they do about what you're selling. So instead of fighting against that, learn to adapt into that. I've taught some people that the best way of selling isn't necessarily the raw product. If certain farmers markets, if they allow you to do it and your county allows you to do it, do breakfast sandwiches. And there are people who have made way more money selling breakfast sandwiches at their local farmers market because people really come to farmers market for food and for the experience, more so than they ever do for actually buying raw commodity products that they have to go home and cook anyway. So these are just things that you want to think about when you're considering what your niche might be. But again, it starts with you. Focus inwardly, think inwardly, get to know yourself more, and then allow who you are to be expressed in how you farm and how you market. All right, next question.
All right, so somebody actually asked if I would share the results from the original poll, the one we did at the very beginning. So I'm going to go ahead and share that.
I want to talk about that.
Yeah, so those of you who are a little bit late, you probably we asked this question of the people at the beginning of the webinar. So I'll leave that up for just a few minutes. And Ryan, I did do a screenshot and I sent it to you, so you're gonna have it in your email, so you don't have to worry about writing it down. Okay.
Y'all, she's so awesome. Yeah, let me talk about that poll really quickly.
Okay.
There 50% of y'all, and this is in the beginning, are making less than $10,000. But I dare say many of y'all, even in the 50%, want to make a full-time living off of farming. And so I think I just want to acknowledge that because it's hard wanting to make a full-time living off of something that you currently aren't, or you're passionate about it, but you don't know how to get started in. Have hope, do not fear. Go back into the webinar if you came in late and just rewatch it a couple of times to kind of help you have a good foundation so that way you can make a full-time living in farming. But also one thing I've learned is you don't necessarily have to make a full-time living in farming. Where does this come from? Who said we have to make all of our money from farming? I am dead serious. I'm taking a break from farming, but I am planning on buying land by the end of this year and going back into farming. Guess what? What I produce on my farm will not be my whole money maker. I make far much more money doing consulting, doing speaking engagements, working with different brands than I would if I'm just farming. So now my farm will be just an extension of what I love to do. It'll be an extension of agritourism and agroeducation on my farm, where I'm not focused on selling raw meat, but I'll be focused on how to actually teach people to do things. And I make more money on that with less time and less energy invested in that. So again, that's something you want to consider and think about. Anyways, next question. Go ahead, Samantha.
Okay. All right. So from Christine, how do you balance the cost inputs, especially with increasing feed equipment costs, with the price point for your output products? For example, how do you compete with the pricing at the supermarket, Amazon, etc.?
Well, why are you competing with those people?
That's exactly what Miriam said. She had a comment. She said the same, and that would be exactly what I said. I would say too. So you don't need to compete with them. You're different. You're different. Your audience, your customers are going to be a different group of people.
Exactly. Don't focus so much on them. You can learn from them. Amazon and all these other folks, guess what they have? Efficiency of scale. Again, going back to that Joel Salatin model, having a lot of land, having a large labor force, having a lot of access to capital resources, including loans. That's what makes them thrive, is they have all three of those things. If you don't have all three of those things, you need to focus on a different model, which is why I preach agritourism, agroeducation, and high-end value-added products. Good question.
All right, so the next question is, how do you generate an initial interest in a product such as goat meat that may not be well known or accessible as an option? Is there a level of education involved in our storytelling as well?
Ooh, I do missions work in Africa, and goat's pretty predominant there. Not predominant, but it is a dominant meat source. Mm-hmm. And goat's one of my favorite. I love it more than I love lamb and mutton. One thing I will say to that is oftentimes people don't really understand the kind of people who will eat goat meat. It's not your average American, just flat out. They don't want your goat meat. They really don't. They might say it's gamey or it's this, even though I think lamb is way more gamey than goat meat. But anyways, whatever. And so unless it's hair sheep, get hair sheep. They don't have as much lanolin in it. And so the flavor is more comparable to, it's less gamey tasting. All right, side note. So yeah, if you want to sell goat meat, you need to be selling it to an international based market. That means people who are usually not from this country, or who have a heritage that's recently not from this country. So from my experience, goat meat has been very popular amongst the African community, not African American, I mean African community, Middle Eastern community. Oh yeah, especially. And so if you're in an area that has those demographic, a high level of them, they're cool, great. You just sell to those types of people. And you market in a way that would be appealing to them. Sometimes a lot of those people, the Africans and the Middle Easterns, and even the Hispanics, they don't necessarily want your goat meat in cuts. They would rather just buy the goat alive and do their own thing. And so that might be something you might want to consider. Guess what? Now you don't have to go to the farmer's market. You can just sell goat and they'll take care of the rest and they'll butcher it. So that's one thing you want to consider. Understand your demographic, understand your ideal customer, and understand who appreciate what animal, and that'll help you out the best. Okay, next question.
Well, I do. Can I add something? Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Okay. So Joan actually said the same thing in the chat, which is, whenever I start or whenever I bring on a new product, I always make sure I hype it up ahead of time. And I'm always building my email list, so I send it out my email, and then I always and then I also I'll add some recipes and that kind of thing. So that really helps out as well. So you got to make some hype, build some hype before you sell it. Then you'll sell out.
And then the other thing is, you mentioned a good point, email, building up your email. Oh man, like I can't express how important that is. You want to make money in farming? Build up your email. I don't care if it's selling raw meat or any of the three things that I mentioned. If you don't have a good email marketing, guess what? You don't have numbers. And so when you make an ask, let's say only 10% of the people that you ask actually buy a product. Well, if you only have 50 people, that's 5 people who will buy from you. Guess what? If you had 1,000 people in your email, then the numbers look a lot different. You can be able to make more money. So again, think about your email marketing, and the best way of generating more of that, I dare say, is online content. I dare say is, again, being a resource to the people in your community, seeing what their needs are, engaging in the community in a way where you can generate email from that. And then some people have even said, you know what, I'm not even going to show my prices online. If people want my prices, they're going to need to put their email in first. And that's actually a pretty ingenious way of getting people's email, even if they don't buy from you. So those are things to consider. Good job, Samantha.
So Sierra says, and I agree with her completely, Corinna Bench with My Digital Farmer has been a game changer for how I think about marketing. And me too. I started listening to her podcast in 2020. I wasn't doing anything online, maybe other than like social media stuff. And I am a complete convert. I love her. She's amazing. So that's Corinna Bench with My Digital Farmer. And actually somebody asked me, we're running a little bit short on time. I'm going to ask Stacy's question. And secondly, there's somebody wanted me to ask Michael O'Donoghue's question, so I will make sure I ask his, and then we'll go back up. So I'm not trying to cheat anybody. I just want to, because that's somebody has specifically wants that question answered. So Stacy, and I think this is a good question, said, would you suggest beginning at farmers markets to help make your presence known? Are there other better ways that you have found?
I just had farmers market PTSD when you said that. I had the flashbacks. Okay. So I hate farmers markets. I think farmers markets serve as a really good PR tool. Think of it more as a marketing tool. I don't believe in making all your money in farmers markets. Again, the people who can do that have a lot of land, large capital, and have a large labor force, larger than yours at least. But I've coached some farmers who still go to farmers markets, but they only go to one. And really, it's just like a community outreach and engagement and networking tool. So they don't make as much money as they do selling stuff online, but they still do it because they want to be a part of the community. They want to see what the needs of the community are, and they want to build up their professional network when it comes to other restaurants, people in the culinary world. So now they're partnering with different breweries, and they're doing classes or courses or events using their local meat at the brewery. Great, now you're making several $1,000s off of that one deal. And then if you do a couple more times a year with the same brewery or multiple breweries or other culinary events, then you can make very good money doing very little work. So networking and marketing is super important when it comes to that. And you can use the farmers market for that. But again, farmers markets work the best for people who have a lot of land, a lot of capital resource, and a large labor force. If you don't have that, I highly recommend focusing more of your energy on email, online marketing.
So I don't have a lot of land, and I don't have a large labor force, and I earn a lot of money at farmers markets. I'm just saying that. I don't know. I don't go to a lot of farmers markets, but that's my bread and butter. but it also, I do use it to sort of feed into some other things. And so like, because I do a lot of educational stuff as well. And so that's the best way to sign people up and get people involved. And I think if you're just beginning, it's a fantastic way to get your name out there. And Corinna Bench just did, I love Corinna Bench. I might have mentioned that before. And she did a wonderful podcast recently. It's been maybe 3-4 weeks ago, something like that. And it was with actually a mentee of ours who's a mentor this year. She was a mentee, I don't know, 2019 or something. And Anna Hankins, she did it was a wonderful, just a wonderful interview. But Anna, she went through their process, her and her partnership wife now, sorry, Shay, she went through their process of getting their name out there and their farm out there. And she's in like the middle of nowhere in Iowa, and go watch it. Anna's fantastic. But it's a good way just to show how you can start. Anyway, so I'm going to skip to Michael, seeing as his question has been asked about. So now I'm curious, what is his question? All right, so Michael, the marginal cost of meat processing is growing exponentially when trying to reach the public market for meat purchases. As a small producer, hogs, the break-even point is driving the need for large numbers. I feel that the USDA is driving the small producer out of the business. Any thoughts on this? And there was actually a follow-up from Daniel saying, having the same issue with our Angus beef here in Missouri. Missouri's, Missouri. It's, sorry, MO, is taking us focus on only selling live weight, half and quarters, and not moving forward with freezer cuts.
So rephrase the question, like to a sentence or two, that way I can kind of make sure I'm answering it right.
So Michael, I think what he's asking is because he's making small margins, and that's sort of pushing him to produce more hogs, and rather than, I'm assuming that his retail, because I price all my stuff based on what my costs are, so that's one way to do it. But I don't know if your market won't stand it or something. I don't know, Michael, if you want to type in a little bit more in the chat, we can share it with Rhyne.
Gotcha.
But anyway, so I guess he feels like
Just
the
wants me to
USDA,
talk about it.
I guess he just wants your opinion on it.
Cool. Yeah, the USDA is not for you. You heard it here first. So that's number one. Their priorities are on large scale agriculture. So that's what they're going to focus on. That's what the USDA sees as the future of agriculture, is more and more larger and larger farmers. So from that perspective, I think that's part of the reason why I focus so much on teaching people about agritourism, agroeducation, and high-end value-added products, is because if my goal is like, okay, I need to produce more pigs, more animals in order to make really the same amount of money that I'm already making, is that real? So again, if I'm going to produce more pigs, well then my land will get to a point where it can't properly sustain a certain level of pigs. And if I keep going, I'm going to have to either buy more land, lease more land, or I sacrifice my land and my land is a moonscape, right? And then that kind of defeats the point of having regenerative agriculture, in my personal opinion. But like I've taught people to consider turning that one pig, which in North Carolina might have a value of $1,200 to $1,500, depending on your marketing ability, into something where now they're selling the pig as an experience or as an event, and then they can make up to $15,000 off that one pig. It's no longer meat per se, or selling pork or even a share of pork, but it's mostly, how do I create an experience that people need and that they want, whether it's a culinary experience, whether it's a butchering demonstration, or a demo class on your farm. I have one client also in Washington State, and one thing that they've done is they've sold $150 tickets for a whole hog event. They make, I think, around $7,500 off of 50 people. I'll probably get the math wrong, it's somewhere around there. But then they're having to pay $4,000 for a chef to cook the whole pig, right? So we decide to double that price to $300. And so now with that price, she is, I think, generating or netting about somewhere around $10,000. Okay, cool. She still pays the chef $4,000. And then that $10,000 for one pig, do 10 events like that. Well, now you have $100,000. I think she's doing 5, which is fine. That's still $50,000 off of 5 pigs. Versus if I had to raise a whole herd of pigs, that's a lot of pigs to just be selling local wholes and halves or retail cuts. So that's why I try to help people maybe think outside the box if it's within your means to do so. So hopefully that helps.
All right, so we are right at 3 o'clock. So I'm going to do one more question. I'm sorry, I want to be respectful of everybody's times. It's hard to pick them. There's so many great questions. I'm sorry, you guys.
Hey, email me these questions. I'd love to just chat with y'all. Go to my website, email me y'all's questions.
There you go. That's great. Email Rhyne. Okay, so this is I think this is a good one, because this is all I think everybody has trouble with this. This is from Catherine. It said, how do I develop a tagline? An elevator pitch is tricky enough, but a tagline is even more condensed. I feel you, Catherine. Got the same issue myself.
I feel you too. So my tagline is wisdom without the hogwash for my personal brand, Pork Rhyne. And that just kind of came just with, I want a tagline, let me think about it. And then guess what? The first time I thought about it, I had no ideas. So then I thought about it again, still had no ideas. I had some thoughts, but things just didn't mesh. And so it probably took me maybe 5 sessions within a month period or 3-week period before I settled on wisdom without the hogwash. Normally I tell people, hi, my name is Pork Rhyne, the Pork Evangelist. And instantaneously people are like, what? So again, it goes back to psychology. If I can recommend anything, I recommend understanding human psychology. That will help you in dividends when it comes to marketing, both online marketing and in-person marketing. When you ask or say something that is different from the typical format of conversation, people get curious. So I could say, hi, my name's Rhyne, and I do X, Y, and Z. I'm a consultant, et cetera, et cetera. Well, that's kind of boring, and people would expect something similar to that. Let's say, hi, I'm Pork Rhyne, the Pork Evangelist. People are like, what does that even mean?
What is that?
So the thing is, keep people off their toes. Keep people guessing, create some intrigue, a little bit of mystique. And if you feel like I'm not that interesting, guess what you are? God made everyone uniquely. You are unique. And so when you take time to do self-inventory, get to know yourself more, embrace more of who you are and how you've been created, that allows for you to start to see, oh, here's a tagline that fits me personally, just like wisdom without the hogwash.
I love it. I love it. So I have a few housekeeping items to share before we sign off today. A recording of this webinar, and I've been asked to also do the chat because there's always great chat going on. And I think I know how to do that. We'll see. Hopefully I do. And the slides will be available soon. Larissa will send them to you. These documents will be archived on our website, not the chat though. And Larissa will also email them to you within a few days. We also have some other good webinars coming up over the next few months. Yes, you can see some pretty amazing stuff going on, and other opportunities for farmers and ranchers in her follow-up email as well. All the links to that will be sent to you. A sincere thank you to Pork Rhyne. It's been an honor and a pleasure to have you with us. I love you so much. I'd also like to give a special shout out to my colleague Larissa. I know she's not with us today, but she's amazing. She does so much. She is like, she's just, I don't know how she does it all. She does all the preparations. Well, for the most part, for all the webinars, she does all of the follow-up. She does all of the setting up. She does everything. She's amazing. And finally, I would like to thank everyone out there in the audience for their interest and attention. As always, you guys are just the coolest group of people ever. I hope that you had a good experience today, and stay in touch and connect again soon. Enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye for now.
Sweet.
I love it. All right, now I have to figure out how to save stuff.
That was fun.
Yeah, it was fun, wasn't it? All right.
Ooh.
I think I have to save the chat. How do I save chat? I have no idea how to save the chat. Okay.
I think it would be automatically in your settings. And so when you end recording, they should send you an automatic